Admiral Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride and watched the massive alien ships moving through space ahead of them. The sight made him feel small, but he had felt small many times before in his life. Today was different, though. Today the entire galaxy would see what humans could do. The year was 2387, and humanity had just joined the Galactic Confederation 6 months ago. It had taken decades of careful talks and proving themselves worthy before the alien races finally agreed to let humans sit at the big table. Now they were on their way to Nexus Prime for the annual military review, where every major power would show off their fleets. Daeho looked at the numbers on his screen. 847 human ships. That was everything Earth could send. Every destroyer, every cruiser, every support vessel they had built over the past 50 years. It sounded like a lot until you knew that the Vorthak Empire brought 100,000 ships to this review. The Hive clusters had brought 200,000 bioships. The Luminar Collective did not need physical ships, but they could create energy vessels that numbered in the millions. Captain So-Min Park walked up beside him. She commanded the Soul's Pride, the flagship of the human fleet. "Sir, we're getting ready to drop out of hyperspace. The other fleets are already there. How do they look, Captain?" So-Min smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Big, sir. Very big." Daeho nodded. He had expected this. When humans first made contact with the galaxy 40 years ago, they learned that they were babies compared to the ancient races out here. The Vorthak had been building ships for 10,000 years. The Hive clusters were older than human civilization. The Luminar Collective claimed to be as old as the stars themselves. "Take us in," Daeho ordered. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Nexus Prime, and immediately every sensor started screaming warnings. There were so many ships that the computer could not count them all. Massive Vorthak dreadnoughts that looked like flying crystal cities, Hive bioships that seemed alive and moved like swimming fish, Luminar energy vessels that glowed like small suns. Commander Jae-wook Lee, the head of human intelligence, came running onto the bridge. "Admiral, you need to see this." He held up a tablet showing intercepted alien communications. "What am I looking at?" Daeho asked. "The aliens are talking about us, sir, and they are not saying nice things." Daeho read the translated messages. The Vorthak called human ships primitive metal coffins. The Hive referred to humans as soft meat in weak shells. The Luminar said humans were sparks that will quickly fade. So-Min looked over his shoulder. "At least they noticed us." "Oh, they noticed us," Jae-wook said. "They think we are funny." The Soul's Pride joined the massive formation of ships orbiting Nexus Prime. The planet below was beautiful, with blue oceans and white clouds, but Daeho could not enjoy the view. He was too busy watching the alien ships around them. Each one was larger than anything humans had ever built. Some Vorthak ships were 50 kilometers long. The largest Hive bioship stretched for hundreds of kilometers and pulsed with their own heartbeat. "Incoming transmission from the Confederation Council," the communications officer announced. "All fleet commanders are ordered to attend the opening ceremony on the planet's surface." 2 hours later, Daeho stood in a massive amphitheater carved from black stone. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats, representing hundreds of different species. Most of them had never seen a human before. Many pointed and whispered when they saw Daeho and the other human officers. The ceremony began with each major power presenting their fleet for review. When the Vorthak Admiral Zexthara took the stage, images of crystal ships filled the air above them. Her voice rang out across the amphitheater, translated into hundreds of languages. The Vorthak Empire presents 400,000 warships, built with crystal technology perfected over 10 millennia. Our fleet has never known defeat. The audience made sounds of approval. Many species clapped or made their own versions of clapping sounds. Next came the Hive Queen Prime, a massive insect creature with wings that sparkled like jewels. The Hive clusters bring 800,000 bioships, grown from our own bodies and powered by our collective will. We are the swarm that devours all enemies, more cheering. Daeho noticed that some of the smaller species looked nervous. Being reminded of how powerful these ancient races were did not make everyone happy. The Luminar representative was just a ball of bright energy, but when it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The collective manifests 3 million energy vessels, created from pure thought and stellar fire. We are the light that burns away darkness. The cheering was louder now. Even the nervous species seemed caught up in the display of power. Finally, it was humanity's turn. Daeho walked to the center of the stage feeling very alone. Above him, images of human ships appeared. They looked tiny compared to what had come before. The Terran Defense Force presents 847 vessels, he said, built with determination and hope for a better future. The silence that followed was worse than if they had booed him. Then the laughter started. It began with a few Vorthak in the front rows, then spread to the hive sections, then to species Daeho did not even recognize. Soon the entire amphitheater was filled with alien laughter. Admiral Zexathara stood up. 800 ships? She called out, her voice carrying clearly over the laughter. We bring more ships than that just to carry our food supplies. The laughter got louder. A hive sub-queen clicked her mandibles in amusement. Perhaps the humans confused themselves. Maybe they meant 800,000? No, said the Luminar representative, its light pulsing with what might have been humor. They really think 800 ships is a fleet worth showing. Daeho stood there and took it. He had been in the solar wars. He had seen friends die in the asteroid belt fighting over mining rights. He had learned that sometimes you had to endure mockery before you could prove yourself, so he waited until the laughter died down. We may have fewer ships, he said finally, but we did not come here to impress anyone with numbers. We came here to serve alongside you, to help keep peace in the galaxy. This brought even more laughter. A small, furry alien from a species he did not recognize called out, "What can 800 ships do that 400,000 cannot?" Daeho was about to answer when Jawook's voice crackled in his earpiece. Admiral, we are picking up emergency signals from the Kalaris 7 system. It looks like the Vorthak are attacking the human colony there. Daeho's blood went cold. Kalaris 7 was home to 2.3 million human colonists. They were farmers and miners, not soldiers. If the Vorthak were really attacking, those people would need help. He looked around the amphitheater. The alien delegates were still laughing and talking among themselves. They had not heard the emergency signals. They did not know that while they were showing off their fleets, humans were dying. Council members, Daeho called out, his voice carrying across the noise. I am receiving reports of an attack on one of our colonies. The human fleet requests permission to leave immediately to provide assistance. The laughter stopped. Admiral Zexathara looked genuinely surprised. An attack? On Kalaris 7? That is impossible. The Vorthak Empire does not attack civilian targets without proper declaration. The signals are coming in now, Daeho said. 15,000 Vorthak warships are in the system. They are demanding the colonists surrender. Zexathara's crystal face showed no emotion, but her voice was cold. Kalaris 7 is in disputed territory. The humans settled there without permission from the Empire. We are simply reclaiming what is ours. Those are civilians, Daeho said. Families. Children. Then they should have chosen a better place to make their homes, Zexathara replied. The Confederation Council members began talking among themselves. Daeho could see they were not planning to help. This was politics to them, not a humanitarian crisis. Captain Somin had been quiet during the ceremony, but now she stepped forward. Admiral, we have to go. We cannot let those people face 15,000 ships alone. Daeho knew she was right. He also knew that taking 800 ships against 15,000 was suicide. But those were his people on Kalaris the 7th. Those were human children who needed protection. He looked up at the council president, a tall, thin alien with purple skin. The Terran Defense Force requests immediate departure to protect our civilians. The president's three eyes blinked slowly. Admiral Kim, surely you understand the mathematics. 15,000 ships against 800. Your fleet would be destroyed. Maybe, Daeho said. But we have to try. Admiral Zexathara laughed again, but this time it sounded different. Colder. By all means, Admiral. Take your 800 ships against our 15,000. It will save the Empire the trouble of dealing with your fleet later. The Luminar representative pulsed brighter. Perhaps the children should watch the adults work instead of getting in the way. More laughter filled the amphitheater, but Daeho was already walking toward the exit. Somin and Jawook followed him, along with the other human officers. Behind them, the aliens continued making jokes about the tiny human fleet that thought it could fight a real war. 30 minutes later, the human fleet was jumping to hyperspace, heading for Kalaris 7th. Fleet Admiral Hyun Woo Nam stood in the war room on Mars and stared at the intelligence reports. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Kalaris 7, and the galaxy had not been the same since. Every major power was watching humanity now, some with respect, some with fear, and some with anger. The hive clusters fell into the last category. "Show me again," he said to Commander Jae-wook Lee. Jae-wook activated the holographic display. It showed the outer rim of human space, where dozens of colonies had been established over the past 20 years. Red markers indicated hive bioship movements. "They have positioned 50,000 ships in 3 groups, Jae-wook explained. Group 1 is targeting the agricultural colonies in the Kepler region. Group 2 is moving toward the mining worlds around Vega. Group 3 is heading for the research stations in the Centauri cluster." "All at once?" "Yes, sir. If they attack simultaneously, we cannot defend all 3 locations with our current fleet size." Hyun-woo nodded grimly. The human fleet had grown since Calaris 7. News of their victory had brought volunteers from across Earth and the colonies. They now had 1,200 ships instead of 800, but 50,000 bioships was still a massive problem. Captain Jin-A Kang entered the briefing room. She commanded the new dreadnought Incheon's Hammer, the largest ship humans had ever built. Even so, it was still smaller than most alien capital ships. "Admiral, the ship is ready for deployment. My crew is eager to test our new weapons against hive bioships." "What is our intelligence on hive tactics?" Hyun-woo asked. Major Soo-ho Yoon, leader of the Human Marine Space Assault Division, stepped forward. He was a veteran of the Belt Wars who had specialized in boarding actions. "The bioships are living creatures, sir. They heal themselves, they communicate through biological signals, and they coordinate like a swarm of insects. Weaknesses? Their strength is also their weakness. They are all connected biologically. If you disrupt their communication network, individual ships become confused. Also, they are vulnerable to certain toxins and biological weapons." Hyun-woo had been thinking about this problem for weeks. Traditional fleet tactics would not work against the hive. Their bioships could regenerate damage, and they fought like a single organism instead of individual vessels. But every organism had vital points. "What do we know about their command structure?" Jae-wook pulled up new data. "Each group is led by a queen ship. These are massive biovessels, maybe 100 kilometers long. They coordinate all the smaller ships in their group through biological signals. Like a brain controlling a body," Jin-A said. "Exactly. Kill the queen ship, and the rest of the group loses coordination." Soo-ho grinned. "Sounds like a job for the Marines, sir." Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display again. 50,000 ships attacking 3 different locations. Even if they could somehow defeat one group, the other 2 would destroy the colonies they were meant to protect. "We cannot be in 3 places at once," he said. "But maybe we do not have to be." He turned to the assembled officers. "Operation Scattered Storm. We split our fleet into 3 groups, but we do not try to fight the hive fleets directly. Instead, we hit them before they reach our colonies." "Explain," Jin-A said. "The hive groups are traveling through hyperspace, but they have to drop out periodically to navigate and coordinate. We position our forces at their exit points and hit them while they are still forming up. That would require perfect timing and intelligence," Jae-wook warned. "Then we better make sure our intelligence is perfect." The next week was a blur of preparation. The human fleet split into 3 forces. Jin-A took 400 ships to defend the agricultural colonies. Captain Dong-woo Han led 300 ships toward the mining worlds. Hyun-woo kept 500 ships as a mobile reserve that could reinforce whichever battle went badly. Each group included specialists. Dr. Ye-jin. Han had developed new biological weapons specifically designed to disrupt hive bioships. Major Soo-ho Yoon trained marine units for boarding actions against queen ships. The stealth frigates, now numbering 50 vessels, would provide reconnaissance and target designation. The first battle came at the Kepler Nebula. Captain Jin-A Kang watched her sensors as the hive fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the nebula's edge. 17,000 bioships materialized in space, their organic hulls pulsing with their own heartbeats. At the center of the formation, the queen ship slowly unfolded like a massive flower. "All ships, this is Incheon's Hammer. Begin Operation Nebula Strike." The human ships had been hiding inside the nebula, using its radiation to mask their signatures. Now they burst out like hunters from ambush. But instead of attacking the bioships directly, they targeted the space around them. Dr. Han's biological weapons were not bullets or missiles. They were clouds of engineered bacteria that fed on the organic compounds that made up hive bioships. The humans released these clouds into the space where the hive fleet was forming up. The effect was immediate. The smaller bioships began to show patches of decay on their hulls. Their organic armor started to dissolve. The creatures inside the ships began to panic, and their biological coordination broke down. "Target the Queen ship," Jin'ei ordered. The Inchin's hammer and its escort group drove straight at the massive command vessel. The Queen ship tried to defend itself with biological weapons that launched living missiles. But the human ships used the nebula's radiation to confuse the guidance systems. When they got close enough, Major Yoon's Marines launched their assault pods. These were small, heavily armored craft designed to penetrate bioship hulls and deliver boarding parties inside. "Marines away," Suho reported over the radio. "Beginning penetration of the Queen ship." Inside the massive biovessel, the Marines found a nightmare of organic tunnels and living walls. The Queen ship was not just a vehicle, it was a creature. Its corridors pulsed like blood vessels. Its control centers were made of brain tissue. "Find the central nervous system," Suho ordered his teams. "We need to cut off the Queen's ability to command her fleet." The battle inside the Queen ship lasted 2 hours. The Marines fought through defensive organisms that the ship created to protect itself. They used specially designed weapons that could kill biological targets without damaging the ship's structure too badly. Finally, Suho's team reached the Queen's brain center. It was a massive chamber filled with neural tissue that glowed with electric patterns. The Queen herself was there, a creature the size of a building that looked like a cross between an insect and a jellyfish. "Neural disruptor charges. Deploy," Suho ordered. The explosions that followed did not destroy the brain center. Instead, they scrambled its neural patterns, making it impossible for the Queen to coordinate her fleet. Outside, 17,000 bioships suddenly lost their connection to Central Command. Without the Queen's guidance, the hive ships began to act on their own instincts. Some tried to continue the attack. Others fled toward deep space. Many just drifted aimlessly, waiting for orders that would never come. Captain Jin'ei's fleet finished the job. The confused bioships could not coordinate their defenses, and the human ships picked them off in small groups. In 6 hours, the Kepler Nebula was filled with the remains of a hive fleet. The battles at Vega and Centauri followed similar patterns. Captain Han used the asteroid fields around the mining worlds to hide his ships, then launched surprise attacks when the hive fleet arrived. The bioships were not prepared for human tactics and lost 8,000 vessels before retreating. At Centauri, Admiral Hyun-woo led the attack personally. His mobile reserve caught the hive fleet while it was still in hyperspace transit. The bioships dropped out expecting to find defenseless research stations. Instead, they found 500 human warships waiting for them. The third Queen ship died when the Soul's Pride rammed it directly. Captain Somin Park, now promoted to Admiral, had volunteered for the suicide run. When it became clear that conventional weapons could not penetrate the creature's defenses. "For humanity," were her last words before her ship exploded inside the Queen's brain center. When the fighting was over, the hive clusters had lost 31,000 bioships and all 3 Queen ships. The human colonies were safe, but the victory had cost them as well. 140 human ships had been destroyed, including several irreplaceable vessels like the Soul's Pride. Admiral Hyun-woo stood in the ruins of the Centauri research station, looking out at the debris field where Somin had died. The station had been damaged in the battle, but it could be repaired. The knowledge stored in its computers was safe. "Sir," Commander Lee approached with a communication tablet. "We are getting reports from across the galaxy. The news of our victory is spreading." "What are they saying?" "The same thing they said after Cholera 7. They cannot believe it. 3 simultaneous victories against overwhelming odds. Military academies are demanding to know our tactics. And the Hive. The remaining Queen Prime has issued a formal statement. The Hive clusters acknowledge human territorial claims and will not attack human colonies again." Hyun-woo nodded. That was something at least. The Hive were practical creatures. They had tested humanity's strength and found it greater than expected. Now they would leave humans alone and look for easier prey. What about the other powers? That is where it gets interesting, sir. The Cholera 7 system looked like a nightmare when the human fleet arrived. 15,000 Vorthak crystal ships hung in space around the colony world like deadly jewels. Each one was bigger than the largest human vessel. Some were so massive they had their own gravity fields. Admiral Dae-ho Kim watched the tactical display and tried not to think about how impossible this was. Behind him, the bridge crew of the Soul's Pride worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone knew they were probably going to die here. Report, Deho said. Lieutenant Commander Bo-Ra Choi looked up from her console. She was the ship's tactical officer, and her job was to find ways to win battles. Right now, she looked like she wanted to throw her computer out an airlock. The Vorthax have surrounded the planet in 3 defensive rings, she said. Inner ring has 2,000 heavy cruisers. Middle ring has 5,000 destroyers. Outer ring has 8,000 support ships and carriers. What about the planet? They are bombarding the cities with low-power weapons. Not enough to kill everyone, but enough to make people surrender. The colonists are holding out in underground shelters. Captain So-Min Park stood beside the Admiral's chair. Sir, they are demanding surrender. They want the colonists to abandon the planet and leave everything behind. Deho nodded. That was typical Vorthak behavior. They did not usually kill civilians if they could help it, but they had no problem making people homeless. To them, this was just cleaning up a property dispute. How long before the shelters fail? He asked. Bo-Ra checked her readings. Maybe 12 hours. The bombardment is designed to collapse the underground structures slowly. 12 hours to save 2.3 million people. Deho had faced impossible odds before, but never anything like this. Sir, called Captain Taeyang Shin over the communication system. He commanded the Busan Runner, one of humanity's new stealth frigates. My ship is ready for reconnaissance. Do it, Deho ordered. But stay hidden. We need to know what we are facing before we make any moves. The Busan Runner was humanity's newest technology. It could not turn completely invisible like the aliens claimed their ships could, but it could hide from most sensors. Captain Shin was the best stealth pilot in the fleet, and if anyone could get close to the Vorthak formation without being detected, it was him. While they waited for Shin's report, Deho gathered his senior officers in the briefing room. The space was small and cramped compared to alien ships, but it was theirs. Options, he said simply. Bo-Ra spoke first. Direct assault is suicide. Even if every one of our shots hits and theirs miss, we would run out of ammunition before we destroyed half their fleet. What about hit and run? Asked Commander Jae-Wook Lee. Against this many ships? We would never get close enough to do real damage. Dr. Yejin Han, the fleet's chief science officer, had been quiet during the discussion. Now she raised her hand like a student in class. What if we do not try to fight all of them at once? Explain, Deho said. Yejin pulled up a holographic display of the Vorthak formation. Their ships are made from living crystal. The crystal grows in specific patterns that make the ships very strong, but also create natural resonance frequencies. In simple words, Doctor, if we hit them with the right kind of energy at the right frequency, their own hulls will tear themselves apart. So-Min leaned forward. What kind of energy? Sonic, sound waves. But they have to be precisely tuned to each ship's crystal structure. Bo-Ra frowned. How do we figure out the right frequency for 15,000 different ships? We do not, Yejin said. We figure out the frequency for one type of ship and target all ships of that type at once. Deho was starting to see the possibilities. How many ship types are we looking at? From the sensor readings, maybe 20 different classes. If we can isolate and destroy one class at a time, we turn 15,000 ships into a series of smaller battles. Deho finished. Bo-Ra, could this work? The tactical officer was already running numbers in her head. Maybe, but we would need perfect coordination, and we would still be outnumbered in every engagement. Captain Shin's voice came through the speakers. Admiral, this is Busan Runner. I have completed the reconnaissance sweep. Report. The Vorthaks are using a standard siege formation, but they have made some mistakes. Their command ships are grouped together in the center ring for better communication. If something happened to those ships, the rest of the fleet would have trouble coordinating. How many command ships? 12. Each one is controlling about 1,000 other vessels. Deho smiled for the first time since arriving in the system. Can you get us close to them? Maybe, but you would have to move fast. Once shooting starts, their sensors will pick up everything. Dr. Han, how long do you need to tune your sonic disruptors? Yejin was already working on her tablet. Give me 2 hours to analyze the crystal patterns. But Admiral, I can only tune them for one ship class at a time. If you want to target different classes, you need to give me time between battles. We do not have time for multiple battles, Deho said. Which class should we target first? Bo-Ra checked her tactical display. The heavy cruisers in the inner ring. They are the biggest threat to our ships, and they are all the same class. Take them out and the rest of the formation becomes much weaker. Do it, Deho ordered. All ships prepare for Operation Quick Strike. We go in fast, hit the command ships and the heavy cruisers, then get out before they can respond. The next 2 hours passed quickly. Dr. Han worked with the science teams on every ship to tune their weapons to the right frequency. Bora planned attack routes for all 800 ships. Jae-wook analyzed Vorthak communication patterns to find the best time to strike. Captain Shin kept his stealth frigate hidden near the Vorthak formation, watching for any changes in their deployment. The aliens seemed confident that no one would be stupid enough to attack such a large fleet. Their ships moved in lazy patterns, saving fuel and power. "All ships report ready," Soman announced. Daeho stood up. This was it. In the next hour, they would either save Colaris 7 or die trying. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. Begin Operation Quick Strike." The human fleet moved forward in 3 groups. Somin led the main attack force of 600 ships toward the command vessels. Captain Jinho Park took 200 ships to hit the heavy cruisers from the side. The remaining ships stayed back to provide long-range support. At first, the Vorthaks did not react. 800 ships moving toward 15,000 did not seem like a threat. Their sensors detected the human approach, but no one gave orders to intercept. Why worry about gnats when you were an elephant? Then the shooting started. Somin's group reached the command ships and opened fire with everything they had. But instead of normal weapons, they used Dr. Han's sonic disruptors. The sound waves hit the Vorthak crystal hulls and set up vibrations that grew stronger and stronger. The first command ship lasted about 10 seconds. Its crystal hull began to resonate, then crack, then explode in a shower of glittering fragments. The second ship tried to turn away, but the sonic waves followed it. Its hull split down the middle like a broken glass. In 90 seconds, all 12 command ships were destroyed. The effect on the rest of the Vorthak fleet was immediate. Without central coordination, individual captains started making their own decisions. Some tried to form new battle groups. Others moved to protect the planet. Many just sat there waiting for orders that would never come. Captain Park's force hit the heavy cruisers at the same moment. The sonic disruptors tuned for their crystal structure worked even better than expected. The massive ships, each one larger than 10 human vessels, cracked apart like eggs. In 3 minutes, 2,000 heavy cruisers became fields of floating debris. The Vorthaks finally realized they were under attack. Alarms rang across their fleet. Ships began moving toward the humans, but without central command, they moved in confused clusters rather than organized formations. Phase 2, Daeho ordered. This was the risky part. Instead of retreating, the human fleet split into 20 small groups of about 40 ships each. Each group targeted a different section of the Vorthak formation. They moved fast, hit hard, then jumped away before the aliens could respond. The Vorthaks had trained to fight large fleet battles where hundreds of ships faced off in organized lines. They did not know how to deal with small, fast groups that attacked from all directions at once. Their remaining commanders tried to give orders, but by the time they could organize a response, the humans were already gone. Bora had called it swarm tactics. Like angry bees attacking a much larger enemy, the human ships stung the Vorthaks again and again, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. The battle lasted 3 hours and 47 minutes. When it was over, 4,200 Vorthak ships had been destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 23 vessels. Admiral Daeho Kim stood on his bridge and watched the surviving Vorthak ships retreating toward the edge of the system. They moved slowly like wounded animals. Many were sending distress signals. Others were trying to rescue crew members from the destroyed ships. "Incoming transmission from the planet," the communications officer announced. The main screen showed a human woman with tears in her eyes. "Admiral, this is Colony Director Min Jong-song." Grand Admiral Mi Young-seo stood in the command center of the orbital fortress above Earth and watched 12 different alien fleets approaching human space. 2 years had passed since the Hive Wars, and humanity had used that time well. The human fleet now numbered 3,500 ships, and their technology had advanced beyond anything the galaxy had seen before, but 3,500 ships was still nothing compared to what was coming. "Report," she ordered. Vice Admiral Changmin Bei stepped forward. He commanded the Ghost Fleet, humanity's new cloaked strike force. The coalition of 12 has assembled 200,000 ships from across the galaxy. Every major power except the Hive has joined them, led by the Luminar Collective. They have convinced the others that humanity must be stopped before we become too powerful. Mi-young nodded. She had expected this. After humanity's victories over the Vorthak and the Hive, Other species had started to notice patterns. Humans did not just win battles, they won them in ways that should have been impossible. That made some species curious. It made others very afraid. Captain Yunji Lim entered the briefing room. She commanded the experimental ship Guangzhou's Vengeance, which carried humanity's newest and most secret weapon. The ship looked normal from the outside, but its weapons could do things that violated everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics. Admiral, the quantum torpedoes are ready for testing. My crew has run every simulation we can think of. Effective range. Against energy beings like the Luminar? Approximately 50,000 kilometers. The quantum disruption field spreads in all directions from the point of impact. General Dong Hyun Woo, head of the Human Strategic Corps, was studying tactical displays. The coalition fleet is moving in 3 waves. First wave is 60,000 ships, mostly Vorthak and their allies. Second wave is 80,000 ships from the smaller powers. Third wave is 60,000 Luminar energy vessels. They are testing us, Mi Young said. Send the weakest allies first. See how we respond, then commit their best forces. That would be my assessment as well. Mi Young had been preparing for this battle for 2 years. She had known that eventually, the galaxy's major powers would unite against humanity. The only question had been when and where. Status of Protocol Prometheus? Changmin smiled grimly. All Ghost Fleet ships are in position. The Coalition has no idea we have been watching them for months. Protocol Prometheus was humanity's most ambitious military strategy. While the galaxy had been focused on the human fleet's public victories, Changmin's Ghost Fleet had been conducting secret operations across known space. They had infiltrated alien shipyards, planted monitoring devices on enemy vessels, and mapped the command structures of every major power. What about our new allies? General Wu activated another display. 43 species have formally joined the human sphere of influence. Most of them are small powers that the big empires used to bully, but their combined fleets add up to about 15,000 ships. Loyalty? Mixed. Some genuinely believe in our cause. Others are just hoping to survive what is coming. But they will fight, at least initially. Mi Young looked at the strategic display showing the approaching coalition fleet. 200,000 ships against her 50,000, counting the allied vessels. 4-to-1 odds. Better than what humanity had faced before, but still daunting. Begin Phase 1, she ordered. Changmin's Ghost Fleet had been positioned throughout the galaxy for months, waiting for this moment. As the coalition fleets moved toward human space, invisible human ships struck at their supply lines and communication networks. The attacks were surgical and devastating. Fuel depots exploded. Command ships lost their communication arrays. Supply convoys disappeared without a trace. Within hours, the coalition's carefully planned advance began to fall apart. Sir, reported Captain Tae-Yang Shin from his stealth frigate, Coalition First Wave has lost 30% of its supply capacity. They are being forced to slow their advance. Second Wave is having coordination problems, added another Ghost Fleet captain. We took out their primary communication relay. Individual species are starting to give their own orders instead of following coalition commands. But the Luminar Collective was not easily fooled. As beings of pure energy, they did not need physical supply lines or traditional communications. Their ships began to hunt for the Ghost Fleet vessels, using energy scanning techniques that could penetrate most stealth systems. Ghost Fleet, withdraw to safe positions, Mi Young ordered. You have done your job. Now comes the hard part. The coalition of 12 finally reached the edge of human space 3 days later than planned, and with significantly reduced capabilities, but they still outnumbered the human fleet by nearly 4-to-1. The battle began at Proxima Gate, a strategic choke point that controlled access to the inner human colonies. Mi Young had chosen the location carefully. The gate was surrounded by asteroid fields and sensor-disrupting nebulae that would limit the coalition's ability to use their numerical advantage. All ships, this is Grand Admiral Seo. Today we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every species that refuses to bow to the strong. Make them remember this day. The first wave of coalition ships came through the gate like an avalanche. 60,000 vessels, led by Vorthak crystal dreadnoughts and supported by dozens of other species. Their formation was perfect, their coordination flawless. It did not help them. Mi Young had learned from humanity's previous battles. The human fleet did not meet the coalition head-on. Instead, they used the asteroid fields to break up the enemy formation, forcing them to fight in smaller groups where human tactical superiority could shine. Captain Lim's Guangzhou's Vengeance led the counterattack. Her quantum torpedoes were designed specifically to disrupt the crystalline structure of Vorthak ships, but they worked even better than expected. Each torpedo created a quantum field that made enemy hulls phase in and out of normal space, tearing them apart from the inside. "Target the command vessels," Mi Young ordered. The human ships moved like a coordinated dance. Every captain knew their role. Every crew had trained for this moment. They struck at the coalition's weak points, avoided their strengths, and used the terrain to their advantage. In 4 hours, the first wave was destroyed. 60,000 coalition ships became fields of debris drifting through the asteroid belt. The second wave took a different approach. Instead of charging through the gate, they spread out and tried to surround the human positions. 80,000 ships moving in dozens of smaller formations, each one probing for weaknesses. General Wu coordinated the defense from his command ship. "All units implement Formation Delta 7. Do not let them surround us." The human ships began to move in complex patterns, always staying concentrated enough to support each other, but spread out enough to avoid being trapped. It was like watching a school of fish evade predators. Except these fish had weapons that could destroy planets. Chiang Min's reformed Ghost Fleet struck from concealment, hitting coalition ships that thought they were in safe positions. The allied species proved their worth, using their knowledge of local space to guide human ships through hidden routes and safe passages. When the second wave finally broke and retreated, they had lost 55,000 ships. The humans and their allies had lost 800 vessels, but Mi Young knew the real test was coming. The third wave consisted entirely of luminar energy ships, and these ancient beings had been observing every moment of the battle. They would not make the same mistakes as their allies. The luminar vessels did not look like ships in any traditional sense. They were geometric patterns of pure energy, constantly shifting and changing form. Some looked like stars. Others resembled crystalline structures made of light. A few appeared to be living equations that moved through space according to mathematical principles. "Captain Lim, are your quantum torpedoes ready?" "Yes, Admiral. But I should warn you, we have never tested them against energy beings in actual combat. Today we find out if they work." The luminar attack began not with weapons, but with communication. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once spoke directly into the minds of every human in the fleet. "Children of Earth, you have impressed us with your victories over lesser species. But we are not lesser. We are the Luminar Collective, older than your sun, wiser than your species can comprehend. Surrender now, and we will allow your species to continue existing as our servants." Mi Young activated the fleet-wide communication system. "This is Grand Admiral Seo to all ships. The enemy wants us to surrender. What do you say to that?" The response came from 3,500 ships at once. "Never." The luminar ships moved forward like a wave of light washing over the asteroid field. Their weapons were beams of pure energy that could cut through any known material. Where they struck human ships, armor simply ceased to exist, but the humans were ready for them. Captain Lim's Guangzhou's Vengeance fired the first quantum torpedo at maximum range. The weapon struck a luminar vessel and created a sphere of quantum disruption 50 kilometers across. Inside that sphere, energy could not maintain coherent patterns. The luminar ship simply dissolved. "It works," Lim shouted over the communication system. "Quantum torpedoes are effective against energy beings." Fleet Marshal Wu Jin Park stood on the bridge of the super dreadnought Seoul Eternal and watched the largest armada in galactic history approaching through deep space. 5 years had passed since the Coalition War, and humanity now commanded 15,000 ships incorporating technology from every defeated enemy. But the fleet heading toward them numbered 500,000 vessels. This would be the final battle. "Winner takes everything." "Status report," he ordered. Admiral Hae-Won Kim, daughter of the legendary Admiral Dae-ho Kim, stepped forward. She commanded the Diplomatic Enforcement Division, which had spent years turning enemy species against each other through careful political manipulation. 17 species have joined the final alliance, she reported. They represent every major power that survived our previous campaigns, plus dozens of minor species that fear human expansion. Leadership? Shared command between the remaining Vorthak admirals, the surviving Hive Queen mothers, and what is left of the Luminar Collective. They have put aside centuries of mutual hatred to unite against us. Fleet Marshal Park nodded. He was the son of Captain Somin Park, who had died ramming her ship into a Hive Queen during the Kepler battle. Like his mother, he believed in leading from the front and taking calculated risks to protect others. Captain Kite John commanded the Soul Eternal, humanity's most powerful warship. The ship was 15 kilometers long and carried weapons that could crack planets. Even so, it was just one vessel against 500,000. Sir, all systems are ready. The quantum cascade cannons are charged and standing by. Range to target, 6 hours at current approach speed. They are not trying to hide their intentions. Director Seiram O entered the command center. She ran the Terran Intelligence Network, which had grown into the most sophisticated spy organization in galactic history. Her agents operated on thousands of worlds, and she knew the secrets of every major species. Marshal, the Final Alliance has issued their ultimatum. They demand humanity's complete withdrawal to the Sol system. All colonies, all allies, all claims to galactic territory must be abandoned. And if we refuse, complete extermination. No prisoners, no mercy. They plan to hunt down every human in the galaxy. Park looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 500,000 ships. The largest military force ever assembled. Even with all their advantages, humanity was outnumbered 33-1. Options? Admiral Kim spoke first. My intelligence networks have identified key weak points in their alliance. 3 species are only participating because they fear what the others will do to them if they refuse. If we can eliminate the right command ships, their unity will collapse. Captain John? Direct engagement is still suicide, even with our technological advantages. But if we can get close to their command center, the Soul Eternal's quantum cascade cannons could take out their entire leadership structure. How close? 10,000 kilometers. At that range, I can guarantee destruction of everything within a 50,000-kilometer radius. Director O activated her intelligence reports. I have 47 deep cover agents embedded in the enemy fleet. They can disable key systems at critical moments, but only if the timing is perfect. Park studied the data. The enemy fleet was arranged in 7 concentric rings around a core of command ships. The outer rings contained the expendable forces, smaller species that had been coerced into joining. The inner rings held the veteran fleets of the major powers. At the center, protected by 100,000 of the most powerful ships in the galaxy, sat the Alliance's command station. We cannot fight our way through 500,000 ships, he said. But maybe we do not have to. He turned to his senior staff. Operation Homecoming. We make them think we are retreating, draw their fleet into pursuing us, then hit them when they are spread out and overconfident. Admiral Kim frowned. That means abandoning our outer colonies. Millions of civilians will be at risk. Better than losing the entire human species. We evacuate who we can and make our stand where we choose, not where they choose. The next 24 hours saw the largest evacuation in human history. Transport ships raced to the outer colonies, loading as many civilians as possible before the enemy fleet arrived. Not everyone could be saved, but those who stayed behind were volunteers who chose to buy time for the others. When the final Alliance fleet reached the first human colony world, they found empty cities and automated defenses. The few humans who remained fought with desperate courage, but they were quickly overwhelmed. The aliens began their systematic destruction of everything humanity had built. Meanwhile, the human fleet retreated toward the galactic core, apparently in full retreat. The enemy commanders were jubilant. After years of defeats, they were finally watching humans run away. They are taking the bait, Admiral Kim reported. The enemy fleet is spreading out to chase us and occupy abandoned colonies. Their formation is becoming looser. Distance to the core? 18 hours. But Marshal, I should warn you that fighting in the galactic core means dealing with gravitational anomalies, radiation storms, and spatial distortions. It is dangerous for everyone, including them, Park said. Maybe more dangerous for them than for us. The human fleet had spent years mapping the galactic core, identifying safe routes through the maze of black holes and neutron stars that surrounded the galaxy's central region. The final Alliance was following them into unfamiliar territory, trusting their numerical advantage to overcome any obstacles. That was their first mistake. When the enemy fleet reached the core region, Director O's agents struck. Across 500,000 ships, critical systems began to fail. Navigation computers developed errors. Weapon targeting systems malfunctioned. Communication networks experienced mysterious interference. The problems seemed random, but they were carefully planned. The agents targeted ships in key positions, creating gaps in the enemy formation that human forces could exploit. Phase 1 complete. O reported. Enemy coordination is degrading. Individual commanders are starting to give conflicting orders. Phase 2, Park ordered. Captain John brought the Soul Eternal around in a tight turn that took advantage of a neutron star's gravity well. The massive ship accelerated beyond what should have been possible, using gravitational slingshot effects that the enemy fleet could not match. Behind them, the human fleet split into dozens of smaller formations. Each group targeted a different section of the enemy fleet, using their superior knowledge of local space to attack from unexpected angles. The battle that followed lasted 18 hours and covered a region of space larger than most solar systems. Human ships darted between black holes and through radiation storms, always staying ahead of enemy pursuit. They struck at isolated enemy groups, destroyed them quickly, then disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. But the real battle was taking place at the center of the enemy formation, where Park led a desperate assault on the Alliance command station. The command station was a massive construct, part space station and part fortress. It was protected by concentric rings of the most powerful ships in the galaxy. Getting close enough to use the quantum cascade cannons meant fighting through 100,000 elite vessels. All ships, final approach, Park ordered. This is for every human who ever lived. The Soul Eternal and its escort fleet drove straight at the heart of the enemy formation. Around them, the other human forces engaged the outer rings, drawing off as many defenders as possible. But there were still too many ships between them and their target. That was when the unexpected happened. Captain Minho Yang, commanding the light cruiser Busan's Hope, broke formation and rammed his ship directly into an enemy dreadnought. The explosion cleared a path through the defensive screen, but it cost Yang and his entire crew their lives. For humanity, came the battle cry over the communication channels. More human ships followed Yang's example. They threw themselves at the enemy defenses, trading their lives to clear a path for the Soul Eternal. Captain after captain made the ultimate sacrifice, each one bringing Park's ship closer to the command station. Range to target? Park asked. 15,000 kilometers in closing, John replied. But sir, we are taking heavy damage. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Quantum cascade cannon charging systems are at 40% capacity. Will it be enough? At this range? Yes, sir. One shot will take out everything within 50,000 kilometers. Park looked around the bridge at his crew. These men and women had followed him across the galaxy. They had seen friends die and enemies surrender. Now they were about to complete humanity's conquest of the galaxy. But they would not survive to see it. All hands. This is Fleet Marshal Park. In 30 seconds, we will fire the quantum cascade cannon at the enemy command station. The explosion will destroy us along with them. It has been an honor to serve with you all. The crew responded with quiet determination. No panic, no protests. They had known this might be a one-way mission when they volunteered. 10,000 kilometers, John reported. Firing solution locked. Quantum cascade cannon ready. Park thought about his mother, who had made a similar sacrifice years ago. He thought about Admiral Daeho Kim, who had started this journey with 800 ships against impossible odds. He thought about all the humans who had died to bring